Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in this video today, we are doing another edition of Roast My Space, where you all send in photos of your own actual homes, and I provide helpful, kind, maybe slightly catty advice on what maybe you could possibly do in your own home. Special reminder to everybody before we get going, you can say what you want about me on the internet. I'm a person that puts myself on the internet. You can say what you want, but these are real people's real homes. So before you take it to the comment section, please be kind, because remember, they didn't ask for this. They just sent in photos and wanted advice. We're all learning, okay? We're all learning. So let's approach this with kindness as we critique, lightly roast these people's homes. Let's get going. Okay, first up, we have Dana. So Dana has emailed me her space here. That she sent me a couple of photos of her bedroom, and she says that although she thinks it's quite cohesive, she's followed some of my advice in terms of, well, not just my advice, other people's. I don't know where she got it, but let's just say it was me. Around, you know, being cohesive in your space, but she's worried that maybe it feels like it's falling a little bit flat, and she is looking for our advice. So let's give it to her. Okay, Dana, first of all, I think that right away, let's start with the color palette. I think there's an opportunity here to warm up the color palette a little bit, or at least do something a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more interesting, because essentially what you've got here is like three very specific colors in the entire bedroom, right? We've basically got white taupe, and I'm going to call this desaturated sea foam. That's gonna be my technical term for the color that you have chosen here, Dana. And although there's nothing necessarily wrong with those colors, I think there is room to sort of play with some space in between some of those colors. So yes, creating a little bit more of a sophisticated dynamic palette that doesn't necessarily just stick so clearly to those like three palettes, right? Like the furniture is all sort of the same white kind of melamine sort of construction, right? So probably got from, could be IKEA, could be Home Depot, could be something like that, whatever. And that's sort of the consistent vibe that you've got going on there. But there is potentially some room to mix in different furniture pieces that are in similar colors, although not necessarily the exact same. And ones that maybe, you know, have a little bit of a different color as opposed to that really, really stark white. And also that color on the wall, I think there's an opportunity maybe to freshen up and do something a little bit lighter, because I think this is contributing to the sort of drabness of the color choice that you sort of described in the comments here. And I can see that maybe coming through. I would love just to see a little bit more warmth and a little bit more of a nuanced color palette going on. So I'm gonna give you some inspiration, because I always like giving a little inspo board for people of different ideas on how you can take this with some different imagery that I found that can maybe sort of inspire you to do something similar. Also, like the generic art above, I assume that, unless you painted it, in which case good for you, but like I'm going to assume, although you didn't say, it looks a little bit like you grabbed this at Home Goods. That would be my best guess. Apologies if you made it, or some independent artist came through with this, and here's me saying it's a piece of art from Home Goods, but that's how I'm reading it, okay? And you know, for me, I just think that there's an opportunity here to do something with a little bit more character, a little bit more interesting, and has a lot more to say. It also creates a really great opportunity to bring in some of those more interesting color choices. Let's talk texture. You know, let's talk texture here. I think there is some space to bring in some really beautiful linens, some beautiful pillows and things that are, although I do love the little cute little cat. What is that little guy's name? Pushkin or something? What's his name? That little stuffy that you got there. So that can be cute. Yeah, that's fine. I think there's definitely room here though to have a little bit more fun with sort of different linens. Also, can we talk about the room placement for the bed placement for a second and how you've done the room? So I can't see the opposite wall of where the bed is, but I would consider flipping it the other direction. And the main reason for that is I just think that it'll create a better flow when you walk in. So when you walk in right now on that side, again, I can't see how big the room is, but you're really just kind of walking right into the headboard. I just think that's not a great furniture placement, and I think it's gonna be a lot better if you were to flip it in the other direction. Also, you know, your walls, when you have a fairly simple sort of basic kind of generic space, I think there is a lot of opportunity to play with something like moldings, which kind of gives you just a way to add a little bit more texture onto the wall, create a little bit more of a shadow, just kind of gonna really make the walls not feel so flat as they sort of do here. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to kind of have fun with that. You could do, yeah, all sorts of interesting moldings. You could do panel moldings, right? You can do something like wainscoting or something. You could do some interesting things, I think, right? There's some cute stuff that's out there. So even if you take this inspirational image here, right? Like it's kind of a similar palette to yours, right? But notice here that the furniture pieces are all gonna be a little bit different. They're all sort of playing in that same palette, but they're all still quite unique. They don't read just that same sort of flat white that you have there. You got some brass coming in with different metals, both in the foot picture frame in the lighting, as well as you've got the table lamp over there, some beautiful flowers, you got some beautiful linens, right? A gorgeous rug on the floor, so, and the moldings on the wall, right? So you've got all these sorts of different things, I think, that are creating a little bit more interesting contrast and texture that's happening in the space. And again, that palette isn't just those same 3 colors. It's a little bit more nuanced to it. It's not an incredibly colorful space, and it's not exactly a space that's got, you know, like a lot of different things going on to it, but just enough to say, you know, you don't have to just choose white and then choose the exact same white or the exact same desaturated seafoam. You can choose sort of slight variations of different tints, tones, and shades that are very similar to that to create sort of a more sophisticated, complex palette. And I think that would serve you well. Overall, Dana, I think you've got a great space. You know, you've definitely created something cohesive, like you said in the beginning in your opening email. I just think now if you want to take it to that next level, I think playing with some of those different textures and colors and things are going to make a huge difference for you. Okay, let's now move on to Jay. Jay sent me this. He says, this is his words, not mine. Okay, I'm gonna read it out so you know I'm not, okay. He says, I know it's dark, I know it's dated, I know it's small. I was going for a vintage traditional look since I had inherited 95% of my things. Perfect, okay, thank you, Jay. This is a very interesting space. He's like, you might not, he also said, you might not be able to tell that my color palette is gold brown with little bits of green or something. And I was like, Jay, I can tell. It's coming right through the screen at me. I can definitely see that's your color palette. Listen, I would say that sometimes when a space is so traditional and it's so locked into a period of time, let's say, you know, this is, you know, the 1890s, let's say, Jay, because you've got a lot of really old pieces that are in this. Some of which, by the way, I really like and I think are really beautiful. Like, I think there's really, really cool pieces that you've got here for sure. But sometimes when everything is from kind of 1890 or when everything is from 1950 or whatever it is, it can sometimes just read like within that like moment, it doesn't necessarily feel super current. And I think sometimes those spaces can benefit from mixing different interior design styles or different pieces from different eras to kind of bring it forward and make it feel a little bit more contemporary. So you don't necessarily have to just stick to like one period of time and then ride that till the wheels fall off. You can mix in some pieces from different eras to create something uniquely your own. Now, if you love this and you don't want to change anything, well then why'd you email me? But I'm going to work under the assumption that you are interested in sort of maybe providing some updates. So I think you clearly love traditional, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And so I think some of these like vintage art pieces or furniture pieces or whatever absolutely can stay, right? There's some opportunity maybe if you want to reupholster some things that might make sense if you want, but there is definitely, it's feeling to me like everything feels very traditional, and also it feels really heavy. I think you got a lot of pieces going on here and there's a lot going on. It feels very heavy. You also mentioned in here that you don't get a lot of natural light. Jay, I wonder why you don't get a lot of natural light when you've got such heavy curtains on those windows. Come on, Jay. I mean, those curtains, very heavy. So I would guess that you might get a sliver of sunlight coming through those maybe at noon, but that's about all you're gonna get. I personally think that some of those window treatments, you know, try taking them off and see if that kind of starts to make the place feel a bit lighter and feel a little bit fresher. Because right now it just feels really heavy to me, and there's really some opportunity here to do some editing. So I would take a look at the pieces that you really love, take a look at the pieces that you're not so hot on, and then start to maybe mood board around some, and I've already provided some for you, so here's a good starting point, of some pieces that you can start to mix in, and it'll start to make your place, I think, feel a lot fresher, right? So, you know, you're playing a lot with pattern here. You're playing a lot with different, you know, ruffles and different sort of like ornamentation on a lot of the different, you know, furniture pieces and whatever, and everything is just feeling a little bit grandma. Now that's okay, but I just think there's an opportunity here to mix in some different styles. That's really your issue here. So it's hard for me to go through and just like tell you, get rid of this, don't get rid of that, except for the window treatments. That was an easy one for me. But like, it's kind of hard to do that because I don't know what you love, right? Like you have to, I think, take a look at what are the pieces in here that you really love. Like, do you love, you know, a pleated lampshade? If you do, then keep it. Do you love that coffee table? Do you love all those pillows that you have? Do you love that sofa? Right? I would take a second look at some of these pieces and go, yes, I love that, or no, maybe that is actually really not my style. I also think, you know, you mentioned here that you've inherited 95% of it, and you've been, you know, a lot of things have just been passed down to you, and you've just sort of taken it and put it into your space. And I think this is really obviously a cool thing, and it's wonderful when you're able to sort of take things that other people have passed down from you. That's not really super my vibe. When my mom, like when people are like, do you want my stuff? And I'm like, no, I'm not that type. But I think if you are the type of person that loves to take inherited pieces, that's wonderful. But remember that it's important important to make sure that you still get your style into your space and it's not just somebody else's because you just took it because it was there, because it was free, because you felt bad that you had to take it, because, you know, someone gifted it to you or you have it now and it's good enough. So, you know, it's not worn out. So like, why do I have to get rid of it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's important for you to have your style that's not just somebody else's style that just got kind of shipped over to you because you're the dumping ground for family heirlooms. Do you know what I mean? I think there's space here to say, here's some really cool things that I love that I want to make sure that I keep because I do love traditional style, but maybe here's some pieces that I can bring in that are my own to create something really sort of curated and makes sense for me. Just because people give you stuff from your family, people, this is for everybody, not just for Jay. You don't have to take it, right? You can say, thank you so much, but that's not really my style, or, oh, that's so great, but I think somebody else would like it more. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to take it because at the end of the day, it's your space, not anybody else's. So make sure that it reflects you and not just whatever the rest of the family has given you. It's an important reminder for us all. I mean, not me, because I don't take anybody's stuff, but for most of you, I think. Okay, and then next up here, we have Bobby with his mid-century modern / English pub / nautical theme that he's got going on here. Okay, Bobby, here we go. Strap ourselves in. First of all, let's start with the living room. He says, I think it should be obvious what my inspiration is. Yes, clearly you're a man who loves mid-century, Bobby. Clearly that is very obvious from the style of pieces that you've chosen here. Overall, I think it's great. I think it's really cool. It looks very edited. It looks like you've chosen every piece and you love it, and that's wonderful. Also, the architecture of your space is amazing. He says he lives in some beautiful spot in San Francisco, which is great. He says he doesn't get a whole lot of natural light because it's San Francisco, because they've got the weirdest weather ever. I would say the weirdest weather I've ever experienced is in San Francisco. I remember being in Pleasanton, which was like an hour away, and it was so hot, like, you know, t-shirt and short sunscreen day. And then I went into San Francisco and I needed a jacket and a sweater. Like, it's weird. Like, it's a different ecosystem. Anyway, San Francisco. So it's a little bit dark and dreary, he says, but overall, he loves the architecture of the space. And I agree. I think it's beautiful. I love the sort of 1950s. I love the mid-century thing he's got going on here. Now, I personally think sometimes something to consider with this particular style, and this is just me, my opinion. Well, the whole video is just my opinion. You don't have to take any of this advice. But sometimes I think mid-century modern in particular, well, except for what Jay was doing as well, because that also feels the same way as this, which is that sometimes in mid-century modern and very traditional spaces like Jay's, is that they can feel a little bit like it's like a film set, or like it's almost, like it can almost feel like a 1950s theme set, like you're in the middle of a sitcom, you know what I mean? Because that style is so specific and so iconic that we're all kind of ready for it, we're all primed for it. And so when everything is that particular style, it just sort of can sometimes feel as like, okay, I've been here before, because it's so specific. It's so specific to that era, and it doesn't feel like it's necessarily combining different eras, and it doesn't necessarily feel super unique. I'm not saying that's what's happening to your place, Bobby, but just something to think about is that if you're like, I like it, but I feel like there's something missing, it needs a little bit more character, I would consider bringing in other pieces that are maybe not mid-century modern. This is a style, I think, that benefits really well from bringing in and mixing in different styles, whether it's traditional pieces that you want to bring in, whether it's something postmodern, whether it's something, you know, uniquely your own, or some sort of heirloom, or some sort of vintage piece that you've picked up, or something you made yourself, or whatever. Something that just makes it feel like it's not so manufactured 1950s MCM. Do you know what I mean? And I think that can benefit with this space potentially. I mean, it's a beautiful space. You don't have to do anything, just something to think about. Now, over to the bedroom. He describes this as a pub / nautical. So here's my thing with themes. Okay, Bobby, we have to have a little word about themes here. I personally believe that themes are at their best when they're sort of a nod to a theme without necessarily being so on the nose. So an example might be the little boat that you've got there. I get it. If you love the little boat, keep the boat. You could put the boat somewhere. It's all good. I'm just saying that's fine if you got maybe one piece for sure. But if everything starts to feel really nautical, you know, it can just sort of feel a little on the nose, a little like someone walks in and they're like, oh, you really like boats, huh? Like, you know what I mean? If they're doing that, it's probably a little bit too much. So subtle nods to something coastal or something nautical can, you know, whether it's color choices, whether it's texture, whatever, I think there's fun ways to do that. Now, you don't have that much nautical stuff, so I'm gonna let it go. I'm not gonna say you have to do anything. I'm not saying this, I wouldn't describe this as a theme room, just something to think about. Now, you do have this wall of books. There's a lot going on here. Now, for me, it feels a little overwhelming because I personally find that I like like places to be a little bit more curated, a little bit more organized, and not so cacophony of Bobby's things. But that's just me. You don't have to make these changes. Again, you do you, but I'm just saying, like, for me, I find that overwhelming. I would find that overwhelming in a bedroom, but that's just my personal style. So if you love it and you want to go for something super maximalist, then absolutely go for it. If it were me, I would probably do something with some closed shelving, and then I'd probably have some shelving system that is in place that's allowing me to style, because clearly you want to style these shelves, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Personally, I would look for opportunities that have some closed door shelving for actual items that you want to store, and then definitely have some shelving units there that you're able to actually style and make super beautiful, which clearly you want to style and show off your things, and that's a wonderful thing. But I think sometimes when it all is a wall of that, it can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming, and sometimes like a really in-your-face gallery wall. You know what I mean? It can just feel a little bit like there's a lot going on here, and sometimes feels, yeah, a bit maximalist for the space in my personal opinion, but that's just me. But overall, I mean, I love the architecture of the space. I think it works really well. So here's an example, Bobby, of a space that I thought was kind of sort of inspirational for you, maybe. I thought this was something that was kind of interesting. Is this particularly nautical? No, except for the fact it's got a navy blue wall. But, you know, work with me for a second here, Bobby. You know what I mean? I think this space is really, really cute. I think it's cool. They play a lot with interesting pattern. They also did a blue wall like you did instead of the sort of star-like, I'm going to say, wallpaper that you put behind your bed, right? It's got a really cute little rug there. I really love this space. It's a really interesting palette. You got lots of color going on here. You got some yellows, some pinks, you've got some browns, you've got some navies, you even got some greens. Like, it's very colorful, but it all feels really cohesive, and they've all intentionally chose really sort of beautiful things that have lots of interesting color, lots of interesting texture, and really cool patterns as well. So, you know, I think that could be an example of something that is, you know, similar-ish to what you're kind of going through. Doesn't read as nautical necessarily. It feels very relaxing and calming for a bedroom. Doesn't feel quite as overwhelming. And, you know, maybe you like that, maybe you don't. That's up to you, but that's just kind of an idea that I was thinking. Lots of really cool spaces that are out there. Again, you also kind of like when we talked earlier about moldings, that might also work for you as well, right? To provide some sort of interesting texture on some of those walls. Not every wall needs moldings, to be honest with you, but just something to think about. Also, you know, if you're really getting down to it, I know you've got this accent wall here behind your bed. Something to think about, because it looks like you do have some lighting, even though it is San Francisco. You're getting a lot of natural lighting in there. Consider also just painting the whole wall, like painting the whole room navy. Like, you know, I'd maybe like to see that for you, is just to paint the whole room navy. That could be really, really cool. And then, you know, from there, put your little curated pieces in there. And that might give you a little bit of a nautical fix that you're looking for without necessarily having to commit to the amount of stuff. And, you know, you could do moldings, you could not do moldings. That's completely up to you. But I think painting the walls would be really, really cool. Okay, so that's it for me for today, guys. I hope you really liked this video. As always, by the way, anything you saw in any of the mood boards, I've linked down in the description. I'm gonna link here to my playlist to other Roast My Spaces. I haven't done one of these videos in over a year, but I love doing them. So if you like this one, let me know. And check out that playlist, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks, bye.